All right, everybody. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Clairvoyant Conversations. I'm your host, Alexander Creek. I'm a psychic medium, numerologist, general cosmonaut, psychic development teacher, and a podcast host, apparently. My guest today is, I had her on last season. This is Dana Camp, and I did get the pronunciation of your name correct this time.
You did. I'm proud of you.
Dana is a really wonderful, grounded, super intuitive numerologist. She works with tuning forks and energy, vibration. She kind of does a lot of stuff, but we're going to talk about we're going to start at least by talking about numerology of 2021, because it hasn't been that long since I've talked to you, Dana, but I feel like the energy has shifted a lot, and it's always worth talking about the energy that we can all kind of work with as a collective this year. And then I'm sure we'll just kind of meander and talk about whatever for 45 minutes. So I hope you enjoy.
That's random's how I roll. So okay.
Same. I think we talked about Buffy last time to kind of get us going. And I was like, so I think I clearly found someone that I enjoy talking to. So thank you so much for coming back.
Of course.
Awesome. So I guess if you want to, I don't know, how are things going with you? I know you just got a new space that we just talked about a little bit before. How's your 2021 kind of rolling out for you right away?
It's rolling. It feels really good for me. I have a strong 5 in my personality spot. And so I tend to be very squirrel-like, and I tend to go with the flow. So I'm very somebody that lives in the moment, and with things needing to be flexible and being adaptable, I feel like this is my energy. So
is 5 your personality number?
It is.
Okay, nice. I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah. So people either follow me or I lose them. so
I feel
but
you.
I tend to, switch channels in the middle of this show, and that's kind of how have you ever done the Clifton Strengths before?
No.
Okay. So I highly recommend everybody go. It's like a $49, I wouldn't even call it a test. It's kind of like a test, but it's like you answer a bunch of questions and it categorizes your strengths from 1 to 34, right? Okay. So I have always struggled to define how and what I do until I took this test. It basically just put it out there. It's very much in line with numerology. I could see how all of it kind of matched up with that. But my number one strength is connectedness. So I see how everything is connected to it. And then my second strength was strategy. So not only can I see how things are connected, I kind of can use that second skill as how to direct it and where to go and how to best put my energies. And it was just amazing how on point it was for exactly what I do for my work.
That's really cool.
And so do it. It's so good.
Cool. Yeah, I'm wondering what mine would be. I tend to I don't know, I can be very adaptable, but I can be a little stubborn also too.
Yeah.
1,000 people can tell me you should try this, and I'm like, no. And then it has to be presented like it's my idea, and then I'm like, that sounds like a great idea. I should totally try that.
You just described a 5.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because so fives, it has to be their idea. They don't like to be told what to do, right? Yeah. So, but if I present something to a 5, if I know they're a 5, like my husband, I'll just throw out this need I have and let him come to the conclusions of how to get that to me, right? But if I say, I need you to go do this, he'll be like, he's a 5 attitude. So so I have to present things without being bossy to him.
That's interesting. Especially, because 5, I always consider 5s pretty go with the flow kind of energy. And by the way, everybody, 2021, we're going to get to this year, but 2021, the energy, this is a 5 year. This is kind of why we're talking about the 5 right away. So my partner happens to be a 5 expression. So anyone listening, that's his full name, basically. And then that vibrates to a 5. So he really does, he needs to do what he wants. He has this 22-4 heart's desire. So like so he has like the organization and like the responsibility is there, but also he does have to be able to like do what he wants, and he needs freedom, you know?
So I have found a correlation with 22s and 5s. They have a very similar vibration. They're very intense, whereas 5s can be chill too. But like that 22, that's like doubling down.
Yeah.
So it's an intense energy. But that 5 and that 22 do share that don't tell me what to do energy. And that they are go with the flow when they're not being told what to do.
Right. Right.
But they will get themselves out of situations, or they'll leave places that are trying to micromanage them. 5s will not be micromanaged.
Oh yeah, totally. So like he's been working from home for almost a year, right? And while it is great because he can just like wake up right before his meeting and like do whatever, he also is like, I am trapped inside. Like,
yep.
He used to be a dancer. Like his degree was in dance. So, and then he finally just got a standing desk so he can like move around and like, I don't see what he does.
Fidget.
Yes. Oh, and of course he has, of course was diagnosed with like ADD, you know what I mean? So like,
you know, I don't know many 5s that aren't diagnosed with that. And so when I read for people who have strong 5 energy, they don't fit in a box. And they have enormous amounts of stored energy that has to be burned off every day, or it manifests in being ungrounded. So that 5 energy has to have an outlet, or it manifests in an unhealthy way. So yeah, he's got to be fidgety and moving and escaping somehow, because that adventurer in that 5, that escape, they need that escape from the mundane, from the boring. In fact, asking them to be bored is like torture.
Yeah, totally. It's just, I'm like, oh, and he's in sales, and I'm like, so he's good at the talking part. He's good at talking and like that part, but he's like, I don't want to have to do the same thing all the time. And I'm like, this isn't going to be your long term. I'd see him as doing lots of other stuff, but
well, that's a 5 thing too, right? Variety.
Okay. Oh yeah.
5s are all about the variety. So yeah, he's going to try all different kinds of things, and he'll be good at them, and he'll move on from them. Even if he finds something he's really good at, he'll still get bored with it.
Totally. Or you have to add on or do something different with it. If you're listening out there and you have 5 energy in your chart, or it sounds like you probably do, you probably do.
Yeah.
For me, like I can spot a 5 a lot when they're telling me their life story, and they're like, oh, I've done this, I've been this place, I've done like there is a 5 there somewhere. I can smell it.
Right. Even if it's in the subset number. So like what kind of 5 is he? Is he a straight 5? Or is he a 14-5 or
a 14?
A 14. Okay, so he's still. So I consider the 14 the most structured of the 5s.
He may not. I'm not. I don't actually remember. What a bad boyfriend. I don't remember what.
No.
what he's also a 9 life path, and I tend to focus on that too. We're both 9s, so we have the spirituality, and but also it was hard to like. One of us wanted, I think, to maybe not commit at one time. I kind of felt like, because like there was like the immediate draw, but there was a little bit of tension, I think, on both sides, kind of toward the beginning of the relationship. Like, are we really gonna like long term do this? Because there's clearly some sort of soul thing here. So, but now, anyway.
So not feeling trapped, like
correct.
That's the key for the 5, is that they stay because they want to, not because they have to, right? Because that's a control thing, and 5s don't want to be controlled. So as long as they feel there's a freedom there, then that's huge. That's a huge thing. But having that 22 and that 4 energy, that wants roots, that wants stability, that wants security. So yeah, especially if that's in the 5 somewhere, right? Contributing to it.
You're a 3 life path. Am I correct in that?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Where does your 1 come from? You mentioned 1 when we were talking before.
So the 1's my attitude.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's how I get stuff done. And it's almost always what you first recognize in somebody when you meet them is that energy. So like I have to be, even though I'm super open to, I always want to do things the most efficient way. Like that's a huge thing for me.
Right.
But when I speak, people think that when I say something, well, then that's it. Like I'm rigid, like there's no moving me or budging me on that. When that's absolutely not true. It's just that when I speak, I come across like, that's it. This is the answer.
Totally.
Right?
Totally.
And so I'm like, no, throw me some new information. I will assimilate that and I will reassess. Like I'm like Sheldon Cooper with a whiteboard.
Totally. Yes.
I am happy to erase that sucker and start over. If you give me something awesome and new that I didn't know before, I will throw that in the equation and start over. I'm excited, actually. And I think that's my 5 energy too. I'm excited for change. I'm excited for new information. I'm excited for anything that's going to keep me from getting bored here.
Totally. I can't do, like, I could never. Numerology seems to be the specialty that I always keep coming back to, right? It's clearly like in my contract somewhere, like for me, it's that in doing like intuitive psychic readings. It's just those 2 things. And then some numerology, and there's always going to be something new that I'm adding. But for me, like I have to have something new. I have to focus on something new. I wonder where that is in my strengths. So
that desire to continue to grow. Like I can't be stagnant. That's something 5s can't be. They can't be stagnant. So just having that.
Sorry?
I said just having that desire to grow will keep you adding new things. But don't you have a strong 7 in your chart?
I have tons of 7. I have tons of
Okay. 7. So that's why you have that desire to continue to ask questions.
Yep.
Right. So your 7 is the faith seeker. They're always asking questions. They want to know why everything.
Right.
So yeah, you're always going to be the seeker and the observer and the analyzer.
As a child, I would scream at my mother to read to me, like, with like weed. So I was like,
more.
That's a little 7 right there. That's so
give me more information.
Exactly. So, okay. So speaking about the 5, let's talk a little bit about the energy of this year and what we're kind of both picking up about this. And so to me, this year, it's like, so last year, 2020, because I think to talk about any number in numerology, you have to kind of go back because each number is going to be
builds
adjacent to it, basically. It builds. So last year, 2020, it's a 4 universal year. And you can also look at the individual numbers in 2020, which is also interesting, the repeating quality of that.
Yeah, it is.
But the 4, to me, it's like grounded stability, but it's also we're having to work within limitation, lots of rules and structure and health. That's kind of the way I see it a lot of the time. How did you see kind of 4 energy play out last year?
So for me, when I see the 4 energy, I think of it being the teacher energy. I think of it being structure, foundation, organization. And then when you add those 2s in, also for me, like immediately is the polarity of it is security and insecurity. So that was the first thing that I went to. As soon as I saw that 4 energy, I was like, oh, this is going to be a polarized year because people are either everyone's going to want to put everything in a black and white. They're all going to want to split everything.
Yes.
So that, again, the 2020 also, right? So for me, the 2 is about harmony. It's also about self and others. And also about creating the harmony with the sides of ourselves, right? So to me, like seeing how divided we were, no shock. I mean, it was building anyway. We had a Master 11 year, like 2 years before that.
That's right.
So, I mean, that was all about us looking in the mirror of ourselves and seeing it in society. And like, what do we see when we look into the society? We see whatever we feel on the inside, like that's always going to be a reflection of whatever we carry around inside. So if we're a hot mess on the inside, we're going to resonate with creating that hot mess outside of us. Right. So you saw people get quiet and go inward, and you saw people who couldn't sit still, couldn't dare to look in that mirror. and own that fear that they just, I always tell people fear is so loud. You want to know where there's fear? Where's the loud at?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's afraid. Like it's looking for something to validate its trauma, right? So I feel like that's why everything was so loud last year. And this year, I feel like this is such a creative, clever energy. The 5 is the detective. I feel like, I mean, even like when we talked a little bit before and I talked about the stock market thing, and I thought, yeah, I look at that and I go, oh, you clever little 5s. Look at you.
Yeah.
Look at how you're manifesting in this change.
Yeah.
There's so much that, I mean, every year it just starts with such a bang.
Mm-hmm.
And for January being a month of 6, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what's 6? 6 is responsibility. 6 is family. 6 is our health. 6 is taking care of ourselves. 6 has so many things. It's like us trying to find a balance point between a doormat and being overly domineering. Like there's so much to a 6 energy, but I tell people pass away, people are born, people get married, people get divorced. Like people will call on you and they will ask you to take responsibility for things that you have to set boundaries for. And it's just a lot. And so January was just so much right away.
Mm-hmm.
And then February is our 7 coming in at that 7 energy, that reflection,
Mm-hmm.
right? Going inward. What did we just go through? We're all going to take that breath and go inward a little bit, or want to pull away from things a little bit because they got a little crazy. Yeah, I love, with 7 energy, I love watching how people are going to play it out.
Not necessarily taking action either, because
Right.
with the 5 can come impulsivity as well.
Yes.
Not wanting rules, not wanting restrictions, not wanting to be indoors. And I definitely feel that. And I remember, like, I did this class at the end of 2020, like 2021, like the astrology and the numerology. And I talked about like unrest, rebellion, like financial systems, because a lot of the astrology does tend to mirror numerology and vice versa, right?
It does. Mm-hmm.
So right now Uranus, or Uranus, like depending who I'm talking to with that, is it's planet of revolution, shakeups. It's not the status quo, right? And it's going through
Mm-hmm.
Taurus
Mm-hmm.
being a sign that rules money, basically. I mean, and a lot of other stuff, but it's an earth sign. Those two energies don't really super play well together, and it's interesting watching Uranus and Taurus now squaring, meaning a hard aspect to the planet Saturn, which is Saturn represents laws and limitation, and so that exact square really kind of starts to play out exactly during the month of February 2021, and I'm like, doesn't this sound like a lot like 5 energy? Because when I looked at 2021, I was like, there is going to be a ton of change. It might be a little bit unstable, I think, at times for the collective, but it's all about, to me, like adaptability, going with the flow. And if you want change, this is the year for it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, in 2020 was showing us where our foundations weren't strong, right? Mm-hmm. Like it showed us where we were insecure, where we didn't have stability, and rather than where we would have stability, where we want stability, we were shown where we didn't have it, whether it was politics or our personal lives or whatever it was, our jobs, our relationship, it doesn't matter. Right. It showed us where our instabilities were, where our shaky foundations were, and even broke some of those down. Mm-hmm. What to me 5 is about clearing the rubble, rebuilding. It's mm-hmm. the opportunity to change what we found out doesn't work in 2020. This mm-hmm. is our chance to rewrite the laws, rewrite the rules, rewrite how we do things. And COVID is forcing us to do it too.
Totally.
School isn't going to be that. School's not, people want things to go back, but really this is our opportunity to rewrite the stuff that doesn't work. Mm-hmm. What doesn't work about school? I have a friend who pulled her kids out and she homeschooled them. Mm-hmm. And she said her kids are blossoming without mm-hmm. the peer pressure.
Yeah.
blossoming without the peer pressure. Now, depending on the person, right? You and I know this, like some people are very heavily leaning into the extroversion vibrationally. Some people are not. But think about being a young teenager and the pressure that we all felt when we were in school. People go, oh, not if you were popular. I go, oh my God, do you know how much pressure popular kids are under to
Yeah.
stay popular?
Yeah.
Stop. They're all under pressure.
Yep.
So it's so interesting to look at that and for her to tell me how her kids have blossomed in the ability to not be compared to other children.
Yeah.
That I just find that amazing. And I'm so excited about that. Like, how is this? People are so worried that everything is going to be so negative. Oh, my kids don't socialize. They're not going to have this and this and this and this. No, they're going to be different than you were. And that's okay.
Yep.
And what if that's better? What if we get a ton of really confident kids out of this?
Right.
A whole nother generation of confident adults.
Well, I also think like just like reality is like a collectively agreed upon experience. So like, like your teenage years having to be tumultuous and hard doesn't necessarily have to be so. It's like we just place a lot of belief in that's how it is. So, and that goes for every aspect of life, including, and I am obsessed with money lately. I mean, I have like just in general, like I just think about it a lot in my security and that is my phone. Sorry, Mom. Hold on. My mom is telling me she's on TikTok. I wanted to watch the video. Like, okay, whatever. So, but the financial systems right now, because I'm like, every time, for me at least, every time I'm like, why? I've been asking this question ever since I was little. You drive by someone who's homeless and I'm like, why don't they have money? Why don't they have the means to support themselves? And I was like, why can't the government just give them money? That doesn't really make sense to me as to why that there's limited resources. And it's only
such a humanitarian.
Yeah. I know. I just, and that, of course, all that 9 energy just like jumping out right away.
Right.
For heart. But that's kind of coming up for me lately. I'm like, reality is a agreed upon experience. And so all the instability with the stock market right now, because 5 to me has a very populist kind of energy, and, which is no surprise.
It's magical. Like 5 is magical. Things happen in a 5. It's manifestation central. Like, I love it.
I love that I feel like there's more and more people that are kind of focused on this idea of manifestation and like creating a reality and all of that stuff. And I'm glad that's in the collective. And I just think we're going to see, a whole lot more of it with the 5 energy this year. Although I do think like being a numerologist and being someone who does astrology and like who reads the signals of the universe, it's like, yes, you can create and manifest things, but also you might want to pay attention to like, the universe does kind of give you some clues as to where you might want to align
right. Right.
If I'm in a 5 year, I may want to manifest, not that you want to limit your manifesting, but I might want to focus a little bit on like adventure because I'm in a 5 personal year. So
that was me last year.
Oh, nice.
Oh, no, it wasn't nice. No, it was. I'm just kidding.
No.
I'm just kidding. But like being in lockdown in a world year of insecurity or security and then not being able to travel was like brutal to me in my 5 year.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But yeah.
Yep. I'm glad I was, as much as my 4 year like kind of did suck at times, it was like, it just felt so much to me like put one foot in front of the other. And it was my first year full-time being self-employed was right before COVID hit. It didn't seem to matter because the universe kind of was like, okay, you're just going to do digital sessions. And I was like, I don't know like what I'm doing. And the whole year was like, build your security,
But that's such a 9, like, so I have a husband that's a 9, a daughter that's a 9, a son-in-law that's a 9, and a grandchild that has 9s. Okay. So I love my 9s. I've got tons of them around me. 9s have this beautiful energy where you guys might not know what you're going to do, but you walk out. It's like if you walked out into a fog, no matter what direction you went in, it's like the universe meets your feet with stones. So I think you've been here, done this before so many times with that 9 energy. You're okay with whatever comes, like it's coming, like it's going to take care of itself. And the universe keeps showing you over and over, it always works out.
Totally.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that for 9s. And so when a 9 says they want to do something, yep.
Do it.
Do it. I'm like, the universe will meet your feet. Do what you got to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Beautiful analogy. I totally felt that. Like, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm excited for this 5-year. I'm excited for it. I want the change. I can't wait for the opportunities. Mm-hmm. They're everywhere. I love that.
What do you think collectively, just like general experiences this year, kind of how do you see this year going just in general? Like what are some general keywords for listeners out there?
Well, I would say wild card. Honestly, like 5 can go anywhere. You can do a 180 in a 5-year. Like you might be on trajectory in one direction and then boom, you are going the other way in a completely different place. Mm-hmm. And it's okay.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And it's okay. So I tell people, expect to be flexible, expect to need to be adaptable, expect to flow. Like if you pick 1 year to just throw it to the universe and allow, this is your year to allow things to come into your being, allow things to happen for you, when you see that opportunity and it feels good, do it. Mm-hmm. Like this is your year. Adventure, freedom seeking. Like I feel like people learned so much in 2020 about what they can't count on, mm-hmm. right? Because we need the polarity so that we have more clarity on what we can and do want, right? So mm-hmm. if we can't count on the government to take care of us, if we can't count on the other options or things in our life, how many people decided to live within their means? How many people decided to downsize? How many people decided to get rid of the second job if they had it, so right. they had more time for their family? Like, I think that last year, everyone's priorities shifted and they're like, this is too much. And I just need more joy and freedom. And that's what the 5 offers. Mm-hmm. That freedom.
Mm-hmm. I really just feel like, every time I tap into it, I feel like there's a lot of consciousness expansion this year too. Like,
oh, I do. I totally agree with that. Yeah.
Feel it. And it really feels like, every time I kind of tune in, like energetically, just kind of meditate on what that means. I just really feel like radically different. It really feels like reality is just kind of shifting as we know it. And, mm-hmm. Part of the 5 is like, does it feel like that solid ground that you are used to? And it's just going to feel a whole lot different. So the more aligned you are with your soul and your heart's desire and your higher self and all of that, like the more you're going to be this is a year kind of like being in the right place at the right time as well.
It is. And here's the beauty. Everybody is exactly where they need to be. Mm-hmm. Like if people just were like, oh, that takes so much pressure off people when you just let them, you're exactly who you came here to be and you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Everything's in divine timing and this is unfolding for you beautifully. People go, what? Boom. Like, and they're like, oh my God, it is. And I'm like, yeah, it is. And like, when you realize that, it takes so much pressure off. You can allow yourself to go where you're inspired and where your flow goes, right? Mm-hmm. I always tell people when your higher self's never going to ask you to suffer, ever. Your higher self is the most loving aspects. It's just guiding you to your experiences. But when we get in resistance and we feel like when those earth programs say, no, you have to do this, right. You have to do it this way. Those beliefs you were talking about, right? Mm-hmm. I feel like people's beliefs got shook up in 2020. They had to reevaluate what they believe in because the systems in place were failing us, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. So people are readjusting their belief systems, which is part of that 5 energy, right? Mm-hmm. Change and opportunity to change. but that higher self's never going to ask you to suffer. So if you catch yourself, like, you remember that scene in Neverending Story with Atreyu in the swamp, and his horse is up to his neck in the swamp, and he's pulling on this horse, and he's crying and he's screaming, trying to get this horse to move out of this quicksand. That when you're in resistance to your higher self, that's what it feels like.
Yes.
Everything's hard, right? But your higher self's always encouraging you, just come this way. And the closer you get to your higher self, the better you feel, and you feel safer, and you feel invincible, and you feel love and support. When you're going against things, it's the resistance is such a powerful suffering that we bring upon ourselves. Mm-hmm. And when you give people permission to not have to do that, they go, oh my God, no one's ever told me I didn't have to do something. I'm like, you don't have to do that. You have so much freedom. You don't have to do that way.
And even just asking, like, why are you doing it? Like, there's other options, right?
Right. But back to the beliefs, right? Because that's really what this comes back to. Well, that's how it's always been done. Makes me want to, when people say that, I want to throw up.
Yeah.
I'm just like, no, thank you.
Here's your 5 personality violently reacting.
Yes, physical reaction like you've just punched me in the stomach. Right. No, that is like death to joy. Right. Well, this is the way we always have done it. I'm like, oh, blah. This is how my parents told me I have to do it. This is how my ancestors, this is what society says. This is what my religion or my culture says I have to do, right? Mm-hmm. Does it feel good? Mm-hmm. Well, no. And I go, oh, okay. So why do you keep doing it? Like, well, fear of acceptance, fear of approval, fear of being judged, fear of not being in control, or the perception of being in control, right? Like, I totally get it. But when they realize that they're making choices from an unhappy place and they have permission to switch channels.
Mm-hmm. Which I think, again, coming back to this year, I think it's just going to be coming up in people's thought systems a lot. And the continuing, I feel like the instability of the systems that we currently have in place are putting in brand new ones, and I think it's also like looking at the 5, because 5 is also about communication as well. Mm-hmm. So I think the different, I just think technology, like lots of different technologies, some of I'm sure are great, and some will probably be like, is that a little like too disconnected from nature? I think some of that is going to come up too.
Mm-hmm. Well, and 5 is about nature, right? 5 is about grounding and getting back to nature. So people rejecting technology or finding ways to blend them.
Yes, totally.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%, what you said about that.
Yep.
About that.
Go ahead, sorry.
Oh, about separating like technologies that are helping and hurting, right? Mm-hmm. Like, really? I feel like there are a lot, like you were saying, there are some that aren't going to work. Mm-hmm. People aren't going to jump on.
I also associate 5 with some like sexuality aspects of sexuality. So I just wonder how that plays out this year. I'm sure that's kind of hard to predict, but because that 5 we associate with the earth and the physical body, just like the 4, but 5, I always kind of give that like rock and roll kind of like sex appeal.
Yeah.
of energy. And I just wonder, about the urge to merge like this year, like, and not making a prediction like, oh, you're going to have sex more, like, generally want to have sex a lot. So, but I just wonder about what that feels like this year, what that looks like if you look at the energy of the 5. I don't know. It's hard to make a prediction off that, but maybe
just people getting in touch with their bodies again.
Yeah.
Not even necessarily connecting with other people with their body, but just them stepping into and really connecting. And even that on that intuitive level, like you said, you feel like people are waking up. Well, Kundalini is very physical.
Yes.
So, I mean, maybe the sexual aspect is really just your Kundalini rising and people becoming aware of the connection between their food and their body and their environments and their mindsets and like how it's all tied together emotionally.
Choice, I think, comes up a lot this year too. It's like,
options everywhere.
Totally. Options. Sometimes because there's always like 5 is just an energy. Numbers aren't like inherently positive or negative. So
Agree.
With the 5 personal year, the 5 universal year, and 5 energy journal, sometimes it can be lots of options. Like, almost like you better figure out what exactly you are going to want to expand into.
Well, and then think about the 5 likes to play. So like role playing, like maybe wearing different masks, even like being able to be adaptable in that way as well. Like, who are they wanting to, what aspects of themselves are they wanting to emphasize this year? I mean, there's just so many ways. This 5 literally can go anywhere. Like it's just so crazy. I love it. I was also thinking when you're talking about sexuality, but you're also talking about like money. Like I was thinking about when you're like, what is sexy, right? Like I was thinking of all the different archetypes that are associated with 5, that were the rebel. Like,
oh yeah,
how sexy is the rebel?
I know. It's funny looking at 5 people with 5 energy as a case study, because you have like Mick Jagger, 5 life path, and I'm like, I mean, kind of beyond my time, but definitely regarded as this kind of sex icon. If you were to look at him though, you're like, okay.
Right. Like a picture of him, be like, eh. But like watching him in action, right, there's definitely an energy there, right? Yeah, totally. So I could totally see that. Yeah. I was trying to think of other 5s now that you said that case study type of thing was for 5s, and I was like,
Anderson Cooper also, but he's very conventionally good looking. But then you have like the 5 journalist as well, like the 5, the communications, the adventurer, and also like a bit of a what's the word, groundbreaker for someone being like one of the first really openly gay journalists, I think, of that magnitude as well. So
again, the rebel, super sexy for people to stand up against or stand up for what they believe in, right? And then you were talking about we talked a little bit about the Wall Street thing, right? And then and the GameStop thing that's going on.
Yeah.
And I just watched the movie The Big Short last night.
Oh, really? Okay.
Oh, okay. That is precursor. Like that movie came out when we needed to see that movie. Yeah. Because I feel like time is repeating itself again, and everyone needs to watch that and understand the corruption so that stuff can change. Like these things don't happen by accident, that they come up.
When did that come out?
Oh, I don't know. My husband just rented it last night, and he was like, oh my God, I rented this great movie. So we watched it, and I was like, oh, that timing of that movie couldn't be better than right now.
Totally.
So for the common person, for the lay person who isn't a big part of all of that, the banking and all that just, people like me who we have a bank. I don't know. Like, I'm not following all that stuff. I don't have a ticker on my computer or anything. Right. Like, I don't care. That stuff's really important to a lot of people, and we don't realize how closely that's tied in. Our government, the ticker, like all that stuff that's going on, the housing market, like right now, like the housing market, like what's going on with that? Like stuff's going to go down. Like, I feel like something's going to happen with that this year.
I feel a few bubbles that may burst basically this year, but I also at the same time feel like there's going to be a ton of new opportunity. But I feel like the things that are going to burst, I mean, student loan debt being among them as well. And like that's an agreed upon burden for some reason, and I'm like, we can just cancel it. Like we can just cancel it all.
You know what's funny? You said that is that when 2020 hit and everybody was like, the whole world within 1 month was bankrupt. Yeah. And I thought, I'm sorry, these huge corporations, billion-dollar corporations, are on the verge of bankrupt after 30 days. 30 days. Y'all don't have any savings, but you tell all of us little people we need 6 months of savings.
Exactly.
But you big companies don't have any. And I thought, no, they have money. They just don't want to put their money back in.
Right.
They want us to pay for it. And I was like, oh, I see. Right. But just thinking about that, and it was so interesting. And I feel like that means such a huge shift for people's mindsets to see. And I talked to some people who are like, I've always, I've never had a lot of money. I've always kind of been right on the line of needing assistance. Like COVID happened and it wasn't any different for me. Like I still was in the same place I was before. Like I still was right on the line of never having what I need. Like, so they said they didn't really feel a difference.
Yeah.
And then people who did have stability were like, I didn't really feel a difference. And then I'm like, well, we keep hearing about people who were affected, but we're hearing about people who already have a lot who are saying that they're being so deeply affected. And I'm like, no, I don't think so. Like, I feel like it was not to undermine anyone's struggle in any way, shape, or form, because everyone's is so independently and unique, right? But like, I feel like a lot of people were like, cool, a bonus check.
Right.
You know? Yeah. So I think that them putting limits on that was a good idea when they were like, well, we're not just going to hand out checks to everybody. Like a millionaire doesn't need that 11, 12, $1,400. Like that's nothing to them, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that was a smart move rather than just the blanket the first time to just give it to everybody. Like I felt like, well, that seems off. Like I felt like there wasn't a lot of forethought in that, but I feel like they're really thinking about things now.
Correct.
So that makes me feel a little bit better with the change in administration, just to see what, I mean, that's the time. It's a time for change. And we had a change of guard right at that time.
Right.
And when Trump first came into office, it was the year of one. So
very interesting, right? I know.
New beginning.
Yeah, totally. Like it or not, it was kind of the beginning of some sort of new cycle. And like, I mean, I despise the man, but it's like, you know, and I don't think he's like consciously playing a role in this at all. But
not consciously. No, just
our shadow, you know.
But being who he is, like he did exactly numerologically what he came to do. He did it through fear, but he did it, right? Like I always tell people, it doesn't matter if you live your entire journey through your fear or your love. It doesn't matter. You're still who you came here to be, and you're just choosing how you're playing out that experience. It's 100% the free will part of this thing.
It's interesting you say that, because looking at just because that's how you live out your chart always, you know, like there's no way that you cannot be your numbers. It just depends like which kind of road you want to take with that.
Right.
You look at I have an ex step parent that, you know, in my sort of story was the role of like abuser, right? And that person had a ton of 9 energy to them. Doesn't seem like the humanitarian, selfless kind of love energy, but what that did, because he was sort of playing the fear role for me, was sort of like teaching me those lessons, like what it's like in need of help and whatever, right? So, you know, you're going to do your energy no matter what. And you do kind of exist on this kind of duality. So, you know, you can either be this generous, loving 9, or you can also just kind of be an a-hole as well. Yeah.
Well, and I'm super, like you had said you had done case studies, right? On 5s. I went through and did like all the serial killers.
Yep. Why and numerologists, we're always doing we are looking at them. So for me, it was really important because of my 3 energy. I tend to have rose-colored glasses on when I meet people. Yep.
And I always explain the 3. When a 3 hasn't done their shadow work yet, they're wearing rose-colored glasses and an eye patch.
Right.
So they only see the parts they want to see. And so we get blindsided a lot.
Yep.
And until we recognize that our own shadow, and then we can see it more clearly in other people. So for me, that was me learning about shadows and the deepest, darkest potential of every number.
Really?
Right. I was really chilled by what I found. And but it really gave me that perspective. I know the darkness that dwells within everybody. They don't have to tap into it, but I am not naive anymore to that it exists.
Totally. Yeah.
And I'm accepting of it. So that's the other part too. Like I accept a person's wholeness. Like I know where you could go, whether you go this way or that way. I'm good with both ways. I know myself well enough to discern whether I'm going to be around you when you go that way. But like, that's my choice. Like, that's my free will, whether I stay in that bubble with that person or not. But like, I don't deny that they exist. And I know how important those polarities are here. Cause I feel like Earth is literally, we're here for experiences, and we need that adversity and the diversity of those experiences to really get the full spectrum of being human. And so,
and to not judge your experiences either, or the choices that you've made too, is a huge part of it. You know? Right.
Well, and when you accept that what we do is we worry that other people will judge us for those things, right? Because that's part of our programming, that if you're any of these, if you feel or act or behave in any of these ways, you're bad. So we hide all that part of ourselves, which is our shadow, right? But when you accept it and you go, yeah, you know what? I've been an a-hole. I recognize the a-hole in him because I got an a-hole in me, right?
Exactly.
And that's okay. Like, it was okay when I was an a-hole, and it was okay when they're an a-hole. I don't have to take what they're doing personal. So it's like, but I look back and when I did my work on myself, I look back and I go, man, I feel like an a-hole. Like, look at how I treated people. And then I realized, but they signed up with me for that experience. They didn't have to put up with my crap. And I was teaching them just as much from my negative as I would from my positive. They needed that polarity. I was still true to who I was. So there's nothing to apologize for. And that's huge when you realize that you don't even have to be, the only person you need to forgive is you. And even then, you don't need to.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That makes sense. You're still like, I just bottom line, I'm like, you're always okay. Like, it's always okay.
Yeah.
Just whatever. You're fine.
Exactly. It's true. It's true. Like, wherever you are is okay. Like, that's where you're here to feel something. Will you allow it? Will you allow it? And what's 5? Allow it to flow, allow it to feel, allow it to manifest, allow it.
A quick question for you. So I was looking at, and then I'm going to ask you this question. Then I want to ask you, basically, I want you to remind people like what you do, like different sessions you offer and stuff. But I want to ask about, because when you look at the numbers of like the years, so 2020, we're adding 2 + 0 + 2 + 0 = 4, right? Same with 2021, that's how we get 5. But when you look at the 20, and then you look at the 21, that's kind of, to me, like a subset of the energy of this year. So we have like a 21-3 going on this year as well. Any thoughts on that for you this year?
I think this whole cycle, this whole Aquarian age that we're in, right?
The 2?
The 20, right? Like the whole 20, like, I look at that and I go, what does a 2 represent? Harmony, peace, duality, mediation, kindness, gentleness, love. So I look at that, and then it's amplified by that 0, which is God, which is infinite, which is limitless, which is a continuous, unbreakable circle, right? So we have this great amplification of opportunities to create this harmony, but it's always going to come from within. And that's, I think that's where people get lost. But then when I see and then you said the 2 and the 1, the 21, right? Again, that would be your duality. For me, I would see that 2 as the duality of within us, and then us as a whole, right? To me, it's like, how do I reconcile myself? The 2 and the 1. Like, I see myself as 2, as a good and a bad version, or, my positive and negative. And then how do I blend those together to create that 1? And what is 3? 3 is self-expression. It's about authenticity. It's about taking off the mask and being true to yourself. So to me, that's...
Go ahead.
That's how I see the 21 manifesting as a 3 energy.
That was beautiful. You're clearly a 3 just because of like, you're a very good communicator. So just because I do, like the 5, I do associate 3 with like words, writing, communication, and like, I also think a balanced 3 is a very psychic 3 as well. Like, I think it's kind of downplayed, but when you go and like look at, Gina Jordan talked about 3 having the power of having the ability of clairvoyance as well. So I always thought that was kind of interesting. But I'm thinking about the 3 right now, the 21 in 2021, and like an unbalanced 21-3 to me is like messy. It's like a messy, emotional, like sensitive person. And I do think like if that's kind of brought into balance, I do think we're kind of dealing with like, it almost feels like a dealing with stored emotion kind of year. You know what I mean? In relationships as well. So
when you don't know who you are, which is, to me, as a 3, I'm a 33.
Oh, gotcha. Cool.
So for me not to know who I was, because I was always being who the person in front of me needed me to be.
Right.
You have no identity.
Yeah.
So you wear all these masks, right? And so, I see that as that's an identity crisis. 3 is also the actress or the actor. It's the chameleon. So if a 3 doesn't know who they are, there's a lot of emotional turmoil inside of them.
Totally.
They can't please anyone around them because eventually people know you don't belong there. You can fake your way in for a little bit.
Right.
Like in school, I could fit into any group. I could fake my way into any circle, but eventually they would know I didn't belong there. Right? But then here I am and I'm struggling and I'm like, well, who the F am I then? Like, I can't make anyone happy. I get rejected and I don't know why I'm being rejected. Well, 3s are also the ultimate mirror for other people. So being a lighthouse, if you're shining that unconditional love at somebody and they don't love themselves, they will push you as hard as possible to get away from them, to get, so they don't have to face that shadow. Right. So 3s often don't know, they don't understand how their kindness can be misinterpreted. But also a 3 and it's negative, like you were saying, is a liar, right? They're huge liars. They're the biggest fish storytellers on the planet. So they're liars and they're gossips, right? And they hurt people with their words. And they're con artists. And if they have a 3 and a 5 combination, welcome to a wild ride.
Totally.
Right.
Like, so, I bet they're probably having some fun along the way, but it's like, balance that out, babies, because
it would be well, I just know through the years that I wasn't balanced, how it's devastating to not have an identity, to not know who you are. When you're not this, and when you're not a mom and you're not a wife and you're not, a daughter, who are you? Right. People would ask me, what do you do? What do you like? I don't know. What do you like? I'll like whatever you like. We can do whatever you want because I don't know. Right. So me finding out who I was super, super important. And now that I know, I just want to teach everybody how to be their authentic self.
That's beautiful. I noticed a lot of 3s when I worked in the service industry, where like the front end people, like front of house, like servers, hosts, a lot of them were 3 life paths or had 3 energy, just because they could show up hungover after like a night at party.
Yep. Oh man.
And be like, hi, how are you? And kind of put on the smile.
That mask. That's the mask.
And they could make the money and then spend it, basically. 3 can be a money magnet, but it can also spend it quite quickly.
It's similar. Like, I feel like 3 and 5 have a lot. They jive together really well because they both like to party.
They do. Yes.
They both like to have a good time. 3s only want to have fun. Like, that's how you know when a 3 isn't balanced too. 3s only want to have fun. They will ditch on anything that doesn't feel good to them anymore. Right. If they can't help a person, ditch. They ditch. They'll give their all, but when they realize that they can't help them, it's so devastating, they just ghost. So, and that's just because if you're always the reflection of whoever's in front of you and you can't make that reflection better, you don't want to stand in front of it.
Right.
You can't. It hurts. And 3s don't want to hurt. 3s are all about joy and fun, and they don't want to hurt. They just want to play.
Yep. It's like I associate 3 a lot of the time with like fairy energy. Like there's just
Yeah.
something very fairy about 3.
Free spirit. I think of the 3 as the free spirit.
Mhm.
When you look at the numbers in order, right? Like the ones next to it are kind of like the challenge energies for them. Like that 4 being so needing that grounding and that consistency and stability. You sure?
Okay, sorry guys. I was sipping water while she was talking and went down the wrong pipe. But anyway, you were saying opposite numbers for being the kind of challenge.
Being a little more serious, being a little like wanting things to add up, wanting things to be stable and secure, a little more serious of a number. Whereas 3s are like, they are fairy-like. They're very light and light energies about them. They want to flit around like a little butterfly, and they sometimes have a hard time staying in one place.
Yeah.
And they flirt like no one's business. They're flirts. And that also leads to tips. I'm just saying.
Oh, totally. Oh, totally. And I will say too, the 3s I find don't resonate with that typically have a 3 challenge. I find a lot of the time, or they don't have a 3 in their name. But for me, it's a 3 challenge. Because if you have a 3 challenge, or if you have a challenge number with your core numbers, it's going to definitely modify that meaning. Because 3, if 3 is joy, and if you have a 3 challenge, it could be very feeling like you have the self-critical energy to me. It's like self-love. That's your challenge in this lifetime. So
yeah,
I did want to mention that for anyone. And I'm like, I have 3 and I'm like really super depressed and I don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, oh,
but that's what I was before I knew who I was, right?
Yeah.
So if a 3 doesn't know who they are and they only find joy when they're giving to someone else, when they're alone, they don't have anything to feel good about.
Totally.
So that's a big part of that 3 not feeling joy unless they're in service. If you can be alone as a 3, if you can look into your own mirror, you're getting somewhere for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, okay, let's start wrapping up. And I want you to remind people what you do in case they want to schedule a session with you, because typical to your 5 nature, you are a little bit, you have like something for, I think, everybody, but it feels like it all fits perfectly for you. So go ahead.
So I consider everything I do, including my intuitive numerology sessions, it's just frequency. Mm-hmm. So the gift of the 3 is that communication. So I can help people shift just through my words. So that is kind of where my gifts are, helping people. And I call what I do perception coaching, because as a 3, as that mirror for other people, I can sit into anyone's chart and feel it like it's my own chart. And I go, oh, honey, this and that and this and that. And they go, how do you know that? And I'm like, I just know that's what it would feel like to sit in this particular chart would feel like this. This would be some of your strengths and your challenges and some of the things that you might have asked to experience when you came here. So I wanted them to know that that's exactly what you came here to experience. So you're good. Like you said, you're fine. It's going to be fine. You're fine. So my sessions are a lot about helping someone feel validated in who they are and how they felt throughout their life. Because that helps people self-accept, right? And then once they self-accept, we can start working on some of that other stuff that they just need to tweak to find more joy, right? It's all about finding more joy. How do I take what I've picked and how do I spin this in a way that's going to bring more joy and more happiness to my story? Mm-hmm. So helping them figure out how they want to write the next piece, right? And then, so everything I do is frequency. I work with a device called a Healy, which is a quantum microcurrent device that I can send anywhere in the world, which is quantum, which is the cool thing about that. And that's something that I think that's cutting edge. That's going to start changing people's lives big time. It's brought up a ton for me. It's been awesome. I've had so much come up to be cleared. I've been so pleased with it. Yeah. And then I work with the angelic realm. So the tuning fork sets that I've been trained in, they're angelic, and I work with the Sfaggio set and some other frequencies that can really help bring you back. Like your body knows your bodies, all 7 of your bodies. So your physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, feminine, masculine, etheric, like all of them, I bring them into balance. and I can find energy blocks in those areas. And usually it's associated with some kind of emotional block, depending on where it's at in your body. So like if someone comes in and I feel pain in my lungs or my liver or a different part of my body, then I get like an outline to kind of why that would be there. Like there's some grief that hasn't been expressed, or there's some anger that hasn't been let go of or needs validation. And then I use the tuning forks and their frequencies to help balance that and clear it.
Do you think people bring in, have you ever had energy? Do you feel like it's like from this incarnation a lot of the time, or do you sometimes feel it's like along their ancestors' line or past lives or anything like that come up for you? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I do feel like it can be from different places. And a lot of my clients are actually practitioners themselves. And so they can see, as I'm working on them, they're getting their own messages and they're seeing where things might be coming from.
Cool.
So it's all very personalized. And that's something that when you have a session with me, it's going to be very personal to you. Mm-hmm. That's my specialty is personalizing it. That's why I don't do a lot of group. I don't do huge group things because I feel like I can't give that attention to that person that they need. Right. So individual sessions with me are where it's at.
Well, I feel like people must, I just kind of get the feeling that people are kind of magnetized to you and they may not know why they're coming to you consciously is kind of what I'm getting, if that makes sense. Like I just kind of,
yeah, no, you're right. Yeah. That, and every day people, I'm actually in a group right now for business. And we're talking about those 34 strengths, that Clifton strengths that I was talking about. And we're in a group with that. And we're helping each other with our businesses. And I lost my train of thought.
It's okay. You've been doing so good this whole time.
I know, a squirrel. Like I just squirreled. I don't even know. I forgot what I was just saying right before that.
Three shiny object syndrome.
What attracts people. And every morning I wake up and the first thing I do is I fill my heart full of gratitude for everything I already have. Right. And then I just put into the universe, help the people who need me find me. Mm-hmm. And that's it. And that's how I start my day. And that's how my phone rings.
Really? Yeah. Cause you're pretty much, you're just on, so people finding you, it's pretty much just Facebook at this point or to call you, correct?
Yeah. Again, that's that personal touch that I want with everything. Like a lot of people just send you, sign up here and you'll get a call from her when it's time. But I actually talk to people and set my appointments with them either through text or through a phone call if they need it.
Cool.
But yeah, everything comes directly to me.
Wonderful. Okay. Yeah. Awesome. I guess I think we'll wrap up. I'm glad that we recorded this conversation on the 3rd, by the way, which I thought was hilarious. So that would and it's I'm looking at the universal energy. I'm like, oh, it's a 1 day. That's good. I did another podcast today, weirdly too. Like I just recorded them both on like a 3 energy day. And I'm like, okay, great. Not my, not on purpose, but I'm glad it worked out that way.
Right.
I guess, and then before we get out of here, I wondered, do you have anything coming up for you? I don't know if you have anything you want to plug, any specials or any like classes.
I do. I have offered a special. So on my page, I can't do it verbatim right now, but I'm offering packages. So if people if they want to set up a once a month session with me, I'm offering discounts for people who set those packages up. So if you want to work on yourself and you want to utilize all this 5 energy this year, I'm your girl. Let's make it happen. Let's get you in the best shape ever.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Dana. This has been wonderful. I just was like, I don't really have an outline. We're just going to talk about 2021. And I figured it will not be hard to just keep talking. It's always fun to talk.
With a 3, yeah, I could talk to anybody, anywhere, anytime, forever.
Especially I just don't really, I know maybe 3 numerologists. So, you know, you being one of those 3. So I'm like, oh my God, 3, 1, blah, you know, you just start sounding like some sort of like numbers robot, you know? So it's nice to dork out about it.
I do. I love it too. Yeah. It's nice to talk to somebody else. I have one other numerologist I talk to, and she's in Kansas.
Yep.
So,
Awesome.
and not very often, but like she's somebody, if I said, did you know numerologist? I'd be like, these 2, you and her.
Yeah.
That's like it.
Yeah. Well, maybe we should build more community or something. I don't know. It's like herding cats though. And sometimes I'm like, no, I want to just, I don't know. We will figure it out another time.
We're rogue. It's fine. We're rogue. Rogue numerologists.
Exactly.
In a rebel year of 5.
Yes, exactly. Well, thanks everybody for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, if you're on YouTube, make sure maybe leave a comment, like, and subscribe. If you're on listening to the audio, make sure you subscribe wherever you get your audio. Maybe leave a nice review, and make sure to check out Dana's Facebook page, or give her a call if you're interested in working with her. And then you can always find me in all my social things, doing whatever it is that I do, all my sessions and videos and stuff. So thanks to everybody for listening, and we will see you next week. And thanks again, Dana.
Sure.
Hey everybody, I forgot to actually say where you can find Dana. You can find her links in the show notes or in the comments below on YouTube. But Dana, why don't you tell people where they can find you?
Well, I'm on Facebook at Dana, D-A-N-A, middle initial U, last name Camp, C-A-M-P, intuitive numerologist, perception coach. You can find me there. I've just started a new page where my office is going to be located. It's called the Inside Job Holistic Wellness. So you can follow that page. I'll be posting on there shortly. And my phone number. If you want to set up a session, you can reach out to me directly at 402-960-0624. And text or call.
Awesome. Okay, good. Okay, bye for real, everybody.
Yeah, thanks so much, Alex. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.